We're not just going to sit around and wait interminably for Congress. We've been waiting a year already. The president has tasked his Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, with reviewing what options are available to the president, what is at his disposal, using his executive authority to try to address some of the problems that have been created by a broken immigration system.
Well, that was White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest, the guy who replaced Carney, today warning that Congress has run out of time because lawmakers have not acted on immigration reform. Mr. Earnest says, therefore, the president is going to have to do it on his own. A little ironic, considering the Supreme Court this morning criticized the administration for executive overreach and for doing it on their own when they shouldn't. Katie Pavlich is the news editor at townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Bernard Whitman is a Democratic pollster and president and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies. All right, good to see you both. So, Katie, they're already saying now, there was a report today saying both parties believe immigration reform is officially dead while President Obama is in the White House as a result of several things, not the least of which is Eric Cantor's big defeat because he backed it and it scared the politicians, and this influx of illegal immigrants at the border. Right. But if the president, is the president actually likely, as Josh Earnest is suggesting, to do it himself?
Well, I think he's likely, but the issue here is what is left for President Obama to do. We've already seen his executive action on immigration has been a policy of non-enforcement, and there's only so far you can go when it comes to not enforcing the law. But the danger here is that the crisis that we're seeing on the border that you have reported on, Megan, on your show night after night, with thousands of children coming here without their parents, is a direct result of President Obama's executive overreach and executive power grabs. And so if President Obama wants to go ahead and create another disaster like the one you're seeing on your screen right now, be my guest, but it's not going to be good for our southern border. It's not going to be good for the people who try and come here. And President Obama is only going to create another disaster on top of the one that we already have that is overwhelming the system and overwhelming our Border Patrol agents and ICE agents who are working night and day to try and solve this problem.
Bernard, and no sooner do we see these pictures and hear these allegations and hear the White House concede that it may be its own policies and President Obama's prior actions that have led to a lot of these children coming across the border believing that they'll be allowed to stay. Then we hear Chuck Schumer say the following: if they don't bring a bill to the floor, the president has no choice on a humanitarian basis and a policy one to act where he can on his own. So they're using it now already, saying the president's got to do it on a humanitarian basis.
Look, I think it's a lot bigger than a humanitarian basis. The American people want a solution to our immigration problem. The economy needs a solution to our immigration problem. And quite frankly, there are millions of undocumented, hardworking families who deserve a solution to the problem.
Okay, so then convince these congressmen to do it. You've got the establishment GOP that's been saying, okay, the Tea Party wing doesn't want it, but isn't the answer go out and convince them?
I think one of the tools to go out and convince them is to basically threaten he's going to go around them if he doesn't. Look, reforming immigration would strengthen our economy, it would grow the middle class, it would secure the borders.
Don't just make boring policy arguments on it, Bernard. We're talking about the politics of whether it can get done and how. Katie, go ahead.
Well, immigration reform is not going to strengthen the middle class. In fact, it will continue to destroy the middle class because you're going to give those people jobs instead of hardworking Americans. On the issue of getting this done, the reason this hasn't happened is because the president demands one thing, and that is a comprehensive piece of legislation, when the fact is that the border and immigration reform is not a comprehensive piece of legislation that's going to fix anything. You have to do it piece by piece. It's a complicated issue, and a year is not long enough to take all of those pieces of the puzzle and put them together.
Let me ask the same question I asked Katie, Bernard. Is the president likely to do it? He's just had 13 unanimous smackdowns from the U.S. Supreme Court, including today a brushback on executive power and overreach. And yet, in the face of that, you've got Dick Durbin, another Democrat in the Senate, top Democrat, who comes out and says, if this doesn't happen, then the president, and I quote, will borrow the power that is needed to solve the problems of immigration.
Yeah, Kate,
borrow from whom?
You know what, Megan? I hope he does, because frankly, we've got to push this issue. Katie said, "Oh, we don't have enough time. We need a piecemeal approach, and a year's not enough." Boehner said he would take a piecemeal approach 1 year ago, and instead he took a do-nothing approach, which is exactly why we're in this situation we're in. Immigration reform would, in fact, reduce the deficit by $1 trillion. It would grow the economy by $1.5 trillion.
You can't help yourself.
It would take these people out of the shadow economy.
People have heard the arguments on both sides. They have heard the arguments for years. I'm trying to ask you whether it gets done and how.
The majority of Americans agree with immigration reform, so let's get it done. It's in the nation's interest and it's in the Republicans' interest.
Go ahead, Katie.
I don't get it.
Bernard, these people are not in the shadows. They are are coming to the border and turning themselves into Border Patrol, and then they're being delivered to their families who are already living here illegally by ICE. They're not living in the shadows. This is not something that's
we hope they're getting delivered to their families. That's the best case scenario. We're hearing terrible reports about what may be happening to some of these younger children who are coming across, and the families are not waiting for them. I got to leave it at that. Good seeing you both. Sorry I had to yell at you, Bernard.
Thanks, Megan.
Don't worry. I also told Senator Mike Lee he was being boring, too. It wasn't just Bernard. If you're boring, I tend to just call you out. Well.